Welcome to Vision Plus.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Vision Plus, and we're talking about the hats we wear in life and the monkeys on our back to become great caregivers, find joy in the moment. And I asked my husband if I could put this crown on his head. He said, no, it'll mess up his hair. Well, we're going to hear from Tony Libhart when he took care of his mother with 5 brothers, and he was still the one to take care of her when she went through menopause and the things that he experienced in that. Then we're going to hear from Sherry Muller, who her husband passed, and she was able to do what Brenda Bell was talking about last week, and that is that she found another love in her life. We might hear about that. But the most important thing that I love about Sherry Muller, well, one of them, is that she was able to figure her finances out, where she has been comfortable with her finances and her 3 children, wanting her to buy them a new car or whatever, and worked out all that out. But Tony Libhart, a Marine, a German, an engineer,
hard-headed.
Oh, hard-headed guy. Well, yeah, wouldn't put on the hat because it messed up his hair. Well, you see his hair. But anyway, he's going to tell us about some things he went through as a caregiver. And I think it was a good thing because his mother told me that before he was born, she thought she had a tumor. And here Tony Libhart was born, Anthony Conover Libhart III. So we're going to find out what this tumor was. And then he ended up of 6 boys being the one selected to take care of his mother. And now meet Tony Libhart, an inventor. I know a lot of you have seen and used some of his invention.
Okay, yes, I'm Tony. And in hearing the show last week, while participating in it, I thought I was not ever a caregiver for anybody. Then I got to thinking about it. When I was about 13 or 14, and my mother was around 65, and going through the change of life, menopause, I had 5 brothers. Right now I'm the last of the brothers still living. But at 13 and 14 years old, my mother selected me to do the cooking for the family. Had to come home from school at lunchtime and cook for my dad and my brothers that came home. So it had to be a real fast turnaround meal, and you had to pretty much prepare for it the night before, but then also had to make the night meal. I could go to the top of the stairs. We had a little landing, and then the stairs split and went to my brother's bedroom and my parents' bedroom. She would let me get to the landing, could never go in that room and see her for about 2 years. But she would verbally give me instructions on how I should cook the food, being real careful with the range, the stove. We had one of those old inline kerosene, had the big round wick on it, and there were 3 of the burners, and if you ever spilled anything or it went over, that would flame up to the ceiling, and you had to take the pot off, put something flat on it to smother that flame, and now you have a cleanup job that night and a new wick that you have to put in to have it ready to go for the next meal. Well, I learned to be real careful with it, and I can't remember ever having a problem with that. But it was always in the back of my mind, I got to do this, I got to do it fast, and I got to be careful. And that lasted for about 1.5 years, and then my second oldest brother graduated from Fine Arts School, Metropolitan Museum of Art, and then he moved back home. He was an excellent cook. That was my happiest day of my childhood. So that pretty well carried me through that episode. However, then one of my brothers, my oldest brother, Jay, or John Jay, was working underneath a car in a pit, and we had drained the gas tank the night before, and the fumes were in the pit. He went down there to weld on a car. As soon as he struck the arc, it blew and burned him, and he had his head up where he was welding, so it burned his throat and mainly the back of his hands, because he was holding a hammer and a stinger for the electric welder. Well, he was wrapped up, hands wrapped up, head wrapped up. When I came home from school, that's what I had to look at, wondering, what was he in an accident, a car accident? No, he was in a fire. It was an explosive fire. So for about 3 years, until that healed enough to where he could start using his hands, I had to do everything for him, give him a bath, wipe him, everything. So I didn't even think about that the other week when we were talking. But my caregiving was as a young guy, because nobody else was going to do it. My youngest brother was a little bit too young to understand everything. He's about 2 years younger than me. And Jay wouldn't let anybody else touch him but me or my second oldest brother, Joe, because he saw what Joe did with my mother. And my mother wouldn't let anybody touch her except Joe. So here I am caught in the middle. It's either Joe or Tony is going to do the caregiving. And I didn't think about it because, well, you just take it in your stride. It's something you have to do. So you just do it. And that's pretty much the extent of what I would.
How do you like receiving caregiving?
It's great. Yeah, because there's things that you just can't reach it, you just can't do it. Like I can walk from the car about halfway into my office, but there's chairs along the way, so I plop down on one just to catch my breath, and then I can finish the journey. And going out to the car is the same way. And if I have something to carry, people will ask me, can I help you? And I let them help. They feel good about it, and I feel good about it.
Thank you for having me, and I'm so glad to see all of y'all. And visiting my little family. I got the pleasure and trial of taking care of my grandmother for 18 months. And she lived to be 96, and it started out, it was going to be like a 9-to-5 job. Just come, you know, sort of be with her and then go out about my little business. Well, when I first moved there, and now you know she had 4 brothers and one daughter, my mother, and 14 grandchildren. But apparently I was the only one available to relocate. So there you go. But grandmother and I had a real special relationship. And there's a very fine line between you want to be the boss and tell them, please don't drive and wreck our car. But they want to be the boss still. It's like sort of having a 2-year-old, but you can't put them on timeout. And you want to give them that respect because they're your elder and because that's the way you look at them. But when I came there, she had a nurse that came every day, twice a day. And she gave my grandmother 8 pills 3 times a day. And that, I didn't understand that. I wanted to know, well, what's the pills for? What are you doing? What does each pill do? And so I would sit there with the nurse, and to make a long story short, I learned what the pills were, I understood what they were for, and if something were to happen, which pill helped what. And the nurse finally came twice a week, then, you know, once a week, then, or once a week, then every other week. Finally, after about about 3, almost 4 months, she didn't come at all. So that was a real blessing. But grandmother, bless her little heart, she was just so feisty. She wanted to be independent and cook, but I didn't want to have the kitchen burnt down. So we just got a bigger fire extinguisher, that just saved that problem, And we did have she did not want to take her pills. And me, I don't seem to have a problem with taking a pill, but she didn't want to take her pills. And she had, what's that, arrhythmic heartbeat where it sort of stops sometimes in the middle of the night. Oh, it was so scary because she would stop breathing and her heart wouldn't work. So it's quite frightening. But if you're, as the caregiver, if you're freaked out or nervousy, which I apparently, as y'all all know me, I am definitely not the calmest bulb on the branch. So we all can agree with that. But if you appear to be freaked out because, oh my gosh, my loved one has quit breathing, then they're going to maybe not respond so well. So when grandmother would hide her pills or not want to take her pills, I would put out, we made a little game of it. I would put out my vitamins, my little, B12 and my little, CQ10 and, little vitamins to make me healthy. And we would make a little game out of it to see which one of us could take our pills the easiest. Then we would get chocolate. So I tried to always win. And then it was another thing that was really hard. I thought, because I wanted to remember Grandma as my grandmother and as always being the boss. But you can't let them run out in the street, and she kept wanting to wear, she didn't want to wear good clothes. The poor woman's 90 freaking 6. What are you saving it for, But you can't say that. And you have to show respect without being bossy. And there's a very fine line because you love them and you want to see them be the very best they can be. On a good note, I also turned Grandma on to Taco Bell and to McDonald's. She always worked on a farm, always raised her own vegetables, never ever really went to a fast food place. Well, luckily we didn't live very far away from a little McDonald's, and on a certain day, every Tuesday, they would have 50-cent ice cream cones. And for everything else she would forget, but Tuesday come along, Deanna, it's Tuesday, it's McDonald's, and she would remember that, and we would go over there. And then she never had a Taco Bell. So there were some really good things that you could get out of it without it just making, when I would get so overwhelmed, I'd just go in my room and cry, just shut the door. But when she was there, I wanted whatever she wanted to do, I wanted it to be fun and let her feel like she was in control. And Lord knows I wasn't, but we all tried. We managed, and it made it. I learned a lot of good things and learned a lot of respect for her knowledge of the past, and just, I take it as a blessing and one of the most cherished times of my life. And I just would say with anyone that's looking into this, just remember that even though they may forget some things, like who doesn't, but as time goes along, for an Alzheimer's patient, for example, instead of saying, Susie, do you know who I am? You walk in the room and you say, hey, Aunt Susie, this is your granddaughter, Deanna, or this is Joe Blow, your husband, or whomever. And that right there takes some kind of panic off of their mind so that they know who you are, or they don't have to worry about, I can't remember who this is. It's just like, if you think of it like this, when you're on an airplane, or as all of us have taken trips, The first thing the pilot says when there's turbulence, when the masks come down, he says, put the mask on you first. Because if you are not breathing, apparently you cannot help your child, your spouse, your loved one, or whomever, because if you're like out of it, then those people are going to be. So just take that into consideration and take care of yourself first, and then you'll be a better caregiver to anyone else.
Hi, I'm Sherry. Bonnie had asked me, knowing that my husband, at the age of 59, he had a stroke, and then he lived 2.5 years, and then he passed away. But during the 2.5 years, I had the opportunity to be the one to take care of him. And it was a choice that I made, but it was also kind of a necessity because I had grown children, but they were all busy with their own lives. So I began to spend time with him and taking care of him. I didn't know quite how I was going to manage all that at one time. But through the course of his illness, he had a stroke, and then he was coming back from that stroke through therapy and hard work, a lot of hard work. And I remember times when I just thought to myself, how am I going to do this? This is such an overwhelming task. And I would look to my faith in God that give me strength. And I also had a great deal of responsibility as far as the finances went. My husband and I had our own business, and we had, he was the income. He was the person that brought that in. And we had a house payment, mortgage that was coming due. And I happened to mention to someone at church that I had probably going to put my house on the market. And a blessing came that very week that someone heard about me, wanted to have to sell my house. So I did sell the house within the 2 weeks and had to get all my stuff out. I had 5 bedrooms and, you know, typical home, family room, living room, formal dining room. And so I had a lot of things that I had to remove out of that house, and managed to do all that, and through a lot of help from others and hard work myself, and moving and storing, and moved into a little 1,200 square foot condo that was in the family, and we so we didn't have to pay rent, which was a good thing. And our business, we owned the building, so we didn't have to worry with that, but we still had to live, and we had to meet obligations of supplying our needs and going to the doctor. And unfortunately we didn't have insurance at the time because we were right in the middle of a change, and God provided in that way too. And but my husband was a veteran, and so he was able to get the benefits of going to see the VA hospital doctors and things like this. And I had insurance on me, and so eventually he was covered for some things, and that helped in a way too. But as far as my finances and being careful, I had to be careful about, at first when it happened, there were organizations that you could contact. People told me where they might be, and I never thought I'd be in this situation, but where I had to go, and they were giving food away for people that might have, you know, a need there for whatever reason. And I remember thinking, I never thought I'd be here at this, but I'll do this right now. And anyway, I did receive some canned goods and some foods that would help us to just make it until we got through, to where we got to where we had some money coming in. And he didn't get on his disability he had to be sick 2 years before he could get that. I believe it was 2 years. And so consequently we had money from the sale of the house that I had to budget into. And one of the things I wanted to do for my husband was to take him on a trip, because I didn't know how long he would have to live. I just didn't know. Usually when you're have a stroke survivor, they say that within the 2.5 years they would probably have at least another stroke that might end their life. And through that, I did have the opportunity to take him on a trip, and we went on a month-long trip out west to see family and friends. And he was in a wheelchair. I had to take him in and out of hotels. I had to call ahead and make arrangements for a handicap room, and it was all on the ground level, and he could take his wheelchair in. We could get him into the shower. Now, by this time, he was to a point to where he couldn't walk, but he could, you know, get himself up out of a wheelchair with some assistance, and he could do some things. So that was a big help. But as far as my finances went, there were times that I just seemed to think, well, he may not be here tomorrow, so why not, you know, do this today? And so there were things that that I did try and help provide.
What kind of things?
Well, he used to say he was one of these people that just wouldn't give up, and he wanted a bicycle that he could ride, and his bicycle was going to have to be one that was not just a $200 or $300 bicycle. This was a $1,000 bicycle. And I said, well, honey, we'll see the best deal we can get. So I did a lot of shopping on the internet, and lo and behold, a friend of ours brought him that bicycle. And it was one that's called a recumbent, and you sit down in it, and it's had the handlebars here at his waist so he could guide and get around, because in that aspect, because if he had handlebars up here, he didn't have enough strength in his left side. But anyway, I have such fond memories of taking care of him. I'm so thankful that I was able to do that, and it was a blessing. It really was. At times, I used to think, all I could see was, Lord, is this what my life is going to be? And I envisioned us continuing to go on like that. I'd never envisioned him passing away. And I thought for sure I would just go on the way I was going, and I just knew that strength would come. And I did get stronger, and he got stronger as time went on, and he lived for 2.5 years. And when he passed away, he was riding that bicycle, and his heart just stopped. But financially, I had to trust, but I also had to, you know, take some things that people offered when normally that wasn't what I was used to doing. And I think that's one of the things as a caregiver, we have to accept the help that people offer us. And if they say, is there anything I can do? Tell them. Tell them what they can do for you. And don't let pride get in your way. I'm not saying that you have to be one that takes, but a moocher, yeah. But do consider that. And then having strength to cook a meal for him often wasn't the easiest, and we could just, he liked to go out and eat, and I can remember him waking me up at 2 o'clock in the morning one night, seeing something on TV, because he wouldn't be sleeping when I was sleeping. He'd be awake watching TV, and he'd say, hey, they have a special two-can-eat for $5.99 over here at Huddle House, or Waffle House or something. So I'd get up, and anyway, I just counted a blessing that God was able to use me to serve my husband, and he used to say to me, you must really love me to do the things you do. And I did. And now I'm a widow, and I've been a widow for 4 years. I met a man who, after my husband had been dead for 2.5 years, I prayed that God would send me someone. I wished I'd have thought about having a list. I didn't think of making a list, but I guess it didn't do you any good. You didn't get what you wanted. As I speak to Brenda, as she spoke last week about talking about how she had a list of requirements for this new mate she was looking for. But God has sent me a a wonderful man, a Christian man, and a man who has the same values I do, and just above and beyond what I would have expected. But I just am thankful that I could share a little bit about what I've been through, and I do know that as a caregiver, you have to remember to take care of you, and don't let your defenses jump up when that person that you're caring for might lash out at you, because oftentimes they're in pain, or they feel inadequate because they can't do the things that they used to do, and they might they have a fear, and anger covers fear, and so we have to remember that if we can just hold back for just a moment and have that bit of patience, we're showing them a kindness that comes from the love that we have for them. And I just thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Well, thank you so much, Sherry Muller, and also Brenda Bell. We're just so happy that you have encouraged us. It's been a very great encouragement, what all you had to say. And take care of the finance, take care of yourself first. And I have some quick 7 points. I'm going to just hit it real, not the whole points, but one thing is wake up and get up and dress up. You need to dress up every day for your spouse and yourself. Keep your hair done, your nails done, your pedicure, whatever. Stand up and make it a joyful day. Make that decision. Today is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. So we want to truly trust in the Lord with all our heart, lean not upon our own understanding, in all our ways acknowledge Him, and know He's directing our path. How in the world can it mean when it says all things work together for good? I'm wondering sometimes how this is going to work together for good. But it has given us time to be together, and that's a good and I'd say look up to the Lord, and reach up for something higher. Trust in the Lord, as I said, and lift up yourself and your spouse and others. You know, Job was healed when he prayed for his friends. So we need to find other caregivers and caretakers. You may have a copy of The Joy in Caregiving. We meet, and you are invited, the first Monday of the month at 6 o'clock at the Village of Providence Clubhouse, and that's at number 2 Meeting Street in Huntsville at Village of Providence. First Monday of the month, 6 o'clock. Come, it's all complimentary and free to you. I'm Bonnie Liphart. See you next week.